So for today I'm going to be doing a basic subnetting scenario, and to start off with this, I'm going to start doing by starting the subnetting from 192.168.100.0 with the /24 subnet into 4 different separate subnets, with each requiring 25 hosts minimum. So starting off, we're going to have this being needing to get a first subnet, which is router 1. It's not right. Router 1 gigabit Ethernet 0-0, and the network portion is going to be 192.168.100.0. And you get the first usable, which would be 192.168.100.1. And next usable would obviously be just continuing down, same thing, except instead of a 1 it's going to be a 2, after that's going to be a 3, after that's going to be a 4. And to finish off, you would have to end up closing it, which at that point is where the subnetting actually comes into play. So for the subnetting, you're going to need 2 different equations in total to actually be able to finish the rest of it. One being the formula for 2 to the x power, and the other one's going to be 2 to the x power is equal to y minus 2. So using both of these, one would be for showing how many subnets are being created in total. This one's going to be showing how many subnets are created in total. And this one on the right is going to be doing for how many hosts. Hosts in total are going to be created via the subnets. So this being the case, let's go down a little bit here. This being the case, since we need since we need 4 different subnets, since we need 4 different subnets, on each one needing 25 hosts minimum, and we're starting off with a /24 as shown above. And since we're starting off with a /24, and that means in order to do this, we're going to have to break it up. So I had already done this previously, 5, 6, and we're going to need to borrow 2 bits in total. That being the case, for using one of the first equations to see how many we're going to need, or how many hosts, since we needed the 25 total, is going to be getting the 32, which is the total amount of bits that are in the totality of all of it, and then going to subtract what you're going to be taking away. So since we're going to be doing a 2, and we're going to be needing a /27, so borrowing, we're going to need a /27. That being said, is going to be 32 minus 27 is going to bring us to 5, and then from 5 we're going to use that, and we're going to plug it into the first equation, which was 2 to the x power. So that's, the 5 is going to go into there, and that's going to be 2 to the 5th power is equal to to the 5th power is going to be 32. And then that means for the first part we're going to have 32 hosts in total for each subnet that we're going to make. And then for getting how many total subnets we're going to have, it's going to be the original /24, or 27 at this point, 27 minus the 24 that we had originally. We're going to end up with, that's 3, and then we're going to plug that in as well to the original, which was 2 to the x power, and that's going to be to 8. So that means we're going to have 8 different subnets in total, with each one being with each one having 32 hosts in total, and that's more than enough than we need for the 4 different subnets that we need for each one of these, which would be Gigabit Ethernet O-O for router 1, Gigabit Ethernet O-1 for router 1 as well, and same thing for router 2. Continuing with that, we're going to resume where we were at before when we first started. It's going to be router 1 here, up. Router 1, and network portion is going to be 192.168.100.0, since the first one we can't use since it's a network, and that's going to be the first one. And the next one, that's the actual usable one, is going to be 192.168.100.1, and then so on and so forth all the way down up until the broadcast, which would be right before the next one actually starts, the next network starts. And since we had previously said each one's going to have 32, it's going to be going up by 32 each time. So the broadcast, instead of being 32, that would be the 31 that we need, and then the next one would resume right where we left off. So it'd be 192.168.100.32, and that would be the first network, since that's the continuing next one, and that would go to 192.168.100.33 as the next usable, the first usable, and that would go down all the way up until the next broadcast, which is right before the next network actually starts again, and that would be 192.168.100.63, because the next one would be end up starting at 64. So for now, we're going to continue with this and start the actual configuration of the routers and routers at this point. So opening this up, we're going to start by the configuration of the first router. This first one's going to be configured and put together with Gigabit Ethernet 0-0. So that being said, nice. Oh, and I had forgotten to mention this, but since we turned it into a /27, we're gonna also have to change the subnet mask. So at that point, it'd be 255.255.255. And since it used to be a /24, which was a .0, and it turned it into the /27 that it is now, and we're going to be using 3 more than what we had originally. Doing this is going to be, go down and use the binary conversion at this point. So it starts off with the 128.64.32.16.8.4.2 2 and a 1. And so since we're now using 2 more or 3 more bits from what we had originally, it's going to be a 128, a 1, 64 is going to have a 1, 32 is going to have a 1, and the rest are going to be zeros. And then at this point you're going to have to add all of them up from what we had at that point originally. So I'm going to be adding the 128 to the 64 and the 32, and altogether that'll end up to be equaling 224. And instead of it being previously how it was at 255.255.255.0, it's going to be made into, oh, I can't erase this guy. Go here. It's going to be implemented into 255.255.255 dot. Instead of 0, it's going to become a 224 subnet mask. Okay. And continuing this, we're going to continue with that configuration right here. So we had already had that done to getting the IP address. Do this. One, since it's the first usable, and continuing with the new subnet that we just made. And as you can see, we're starting to get our first points here. And continue as well with the next part, which would be gigabit Ethernet 0-1. Say dot 100 dot. And that's going to be the next one that we had made, which is right here to the right, which would be 33. And then 255.255.22. And what we said, 224. And again, no shutdown. That being said, you would continue this with using all the usable ones. You could continue this with the router to gigabit Ethernet 0-0, continuing with the numbers proceedings after that. So since the first one right here was 0 to 31, and then the next one was 32 to 63, it would continue like that, with the next network being 64, and the next one after that being 92, I want to say 96, correction, 96, and you would continue that all the way down using all 4 of the networks that you're, or subnets that you're going to be making, with each one having having the numbers usable, not including the network on the broadcast, to be able to put on all your IP addresses, and as well using the subnet that was just created with the 224.